Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And I've been meaning to do this one for the last few days. Because I've been watching the overhyping and the drama and the surge of patriotism, the surge of pride of people coming to stand together with Texas in their climatic battle against the feds, and the circle jerk of the prospects of civil war and all this nonsense. And I just want to untangle this web of shit, which this seems to be. Now, the issue with the border for migrants, legal immigrants, is a serious issue. And it's not an issue that just exists and appeared out of nowhere on January 20th, 2021. It didn't start with Biden. It did not start with Trump. When Trump made it his mission in life to make sure any human being that tried to cross the border or was waiting at the door as a migrant made their lives a living hell. And I will use the terms put kids in cages. And when someone goes, oh, Obama did it. Yeah, fucking right. He did it too. And he was fucking wrong too. So let's get that little whataboutism out of the fucking way. Okay? Good. So yeah, Trump put kids in cages. Trump ripped children from parents and or adults because they might be coyotes. Woo. So we would have these wonderful little scenes of like single-digit children who did not speak English go to immigration court. What a farce that is. And during this time, while we were separating the people and running their little shell game, because God forbid that they actually allow the media or clergy from like the Catholic Church to know where any of these people are. The director of Homeland Security under Trump, when they asked her where the women were, where the girls that they were separating, she said she didn't know. I bet she didn't. And let's not forget what certain numbers of these migrant women had to go through involuntary, without their choice, from y'all pro-life folk. Involuntary hysterectomies, because God forbid that these people in this country would somehow breed offspring or something, because fucking Buck v. Bell, right? Didn't start with Trump. Didn't start with Obama. As aforementioned, he's the one who built the cages for the kids, because they were unaccompanied children that was crossing over the border and they were detaining them. But he was also the deporter-in-chief, who deported vast sums of people. Now, unlike Trump, who would make this into, something to be proud of, Obama kept it on the DL. He was doing it, but he was not, just blowing it out there for people to hear about. Because, ripping people out of their homes, even though when they're illegal or not, is kind of a traumatic thing, because illegal human beings are still human beings, and it's not exactly you're not supposed to be in that, that moral soul that you're supposed to be having. That's not supposed to be something that you should be happy about, but people seem to be. I would dare say that we as a country, in terms of our politics, had not taken the border seriously for 30 years. Since the comprehensive immigration reform of the early 90s. After which, it became a political issue. An issue that people ran on. That people would We would come down to the border at election time, see the borderline, and wag their fingers, and why can't we build that dang fence or that wall? Blah blah blah. And then elections come and go, and whatever talking points people have about the border, and whatever they will complain about the border, or when people are crossing the border when they're not supposed to, or we're having a a massive backlog of people who are trying to legally come into the country. That becomes talking points, lip service, but nothing beyond that. And I'm going to throw out some statistics between Trump and Biden in terms of border arrests and release, including releases into this country. But it is kind of galling to me where we are at in terms of how this is such a political issue that people just use it as a political issue. Once again, this is a problem that people run on, but they don't really want to solve. Now, Trump being touted as someone who's like really super strong about the border, and he's a strong guy about the border. He's going to detain everyone at the border. He's going to do all this. He's going to do that at the border. And he also said that he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. How did that work out? Some people have the audacity to say that he always keeps his promises, and he never, that was also a promise, and that didn't quite work out, did it? Actually, in fact, the irony is that when Biden became president, and they was trying to do anything to do with the border, he actually got Mexico to put in money for border security. I don't even have to finish that sentence, do I? You said how fucking ironic that is. Now, one of the things that is adding to this web of shit that I'm trying to untangle here for you is the saturated propaganda it is that this is an open border. That because of Biden and Mayorkas, who they're trying to impeach because Lord knows, instead of actually doing something like the bipartisan bill. No, let's just whine about the border and try to impeach the Secretary of Homeland Security. Why not? And remember, this is all Biden's fault. Mm-hmm. But it's supposed to be this open border, right? That because of Biden is now in league with the cartels somehow magically. And in league with the fentanyl coming into the country, ironically enough, as kind of a side tangent on that, as we few days prior found out that the Trump White House was a pill farm. It was candy land for pharmaceuticals, including fentanyl. Okay. But be that as it may. Yeah, open border. Yeah, they're just coming in. Open border. Just let them in. They look as examples of it being an open border by the amount of arrests that we do at the border. They say it's an open border by the numbers of seizures we have done at the border, capturing drug shipments like fentanyl into the border. You see where the logic is kind of skewing away from reality. If there are so many arrests and there's so many seizures, then the border isn't open, is it? Because if the border was open, then we would not be having such seizures. We would not be having such massive amounts of arrests. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about that in a little bit of some data. A comparison between the 4 years of Trump and the 4 years of Biden when it comes to the border. This is from the Cato Institute. This was published in November 2nd, 2023. New data shows migrants were more likely to be released by Trump than Biden. According to the new data last month, this is from November, the Biden Department of Homeland Security has removed a higher percentage of arrested border crossers in its first 2 years than the Department of Homeland Security did over its last 2 years. Moreover, migrants were more likely to be released after the border arrest under President Trump than under President Biden. During the Trump administration, the DHS made 1.4 million arrests what it calls encounters. In fiscal years 2019 and 2020, 24 months, of those arrested, only 47% were removed as of December 31st, 2021, which included people arrested by Trump and removed by Biden, and 52% were released into the United States. Under Biden, the DHS made over 5 million arrests in its first 26.3 months, and it removed nearly 2.6 million, 51%, while releasing only 49%. In other words, the Trump Department of Homeland Security removed a minority of those arrested, while the Biden Department of Homeland Security removed a majority. Biden managed to increase the removal share while also increasing the total removals by a factor of 3.5. So there's a little factoid to you upon those people who keep saying that this is an open border under Biden. Another issue that goes into this is that I myself am not a fan of Biden. I made that particularly clear. I'm not particularly going to be interested in voting for him this time around, and one of the primary reasons why I'm not going to be voting for him is because of the border. Certainly not going to vote for Trump. Fuck him. He's an unqualified, disqualified piece of shit. So, I'll write somebody in if I have to. But one of the assumptions that I was operating on was that because we didn't hear too much about it, because he seemed to be too busy with other things going on, we didn't hear too many differences in what Biden was doing at the border as opposed to Trump. Meaning, we did not hear too many, overt or dramatic shifts in tone, shifts in procedures when it come to the border. They were still detaining people. They were still playing a little shell game about it, and it was still a humanitarian issue. Now, that doesn't stop Republicans, like the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, of still making it seem like this whole border issue just seemed to have cropped up as soon as Biden became president. And for a governor and for people who were so interested in keeping illegal immigrants out, they didn't seem to have a problem putting these people on buses, sending them to New York City, sending them to D.C., sending them to Martha's Vineyard, because if it's a political stunt and you're all supposed to be sanctuary cities and you can't take it. These are human fucking beings, y'all. That you're human trafficking. And when you think about it in your own logic, where you want to keep people out of this country that are illegal, you are sending people deeper into the country because of your politics. You may as well be coyotes. It's just on the other side of the border and just continuing on the trek. Not giving a shit of what happens to these people. Don't care where they land as long as they're not here, and we're just gonna make those, fuck the libs. So, on that vein, where, for the sake of politics, which is actually my title of my last video, we all had assumed that Biden wasn't doing anything at the border, or at least nothing not dramatically changed. Him nor Kamala Harris, the big czar of the border, didn't quite do that, Madam Vice President. Wasn't doing anything vaguely all that different. But despite that, Republicans still are blaming the border on Biden. Blaming what is happening at the border on Biden, even though he is barely doing anything different than Trump. That's amazing. That is amazing how we just lose this gap of reality. We just automatically, actively choose to not live in reality. That we just, no, reality sucks. No. Let's move to Candyland, where the Trumps are, and we'll just perceive a reality that benefits our own ethos, and the rest of the reality that is actually reality, we won't exist in. Okay. But when you find out, when you actually dig into it, get past your own cynicism, as I tried to get past my cynicism on Biden, and you find out, well, yeah, he's actually trying to do something at the border. And it goes back to these claims we heard early on about, it's an open border, yet there's so many people who are arrested. But that just proves it's an open border. How? If there was an open border, no one would be arrested. They'd just be going through. And here's the thing. Republicans were told, specifically by Donald Trump, to not do anything to improve the border. This is not me with TDS just assuming this. This has been stated. Last few days, it's been stated that Trump wanted to torpedo the bipartisan Senate border deal. Laura Ingraham on her show had Mike Johnson, the saintly new Moses of the Speaker of the House, on where she says she talked to Trump, and then said that Mike talked to Trump, and then that of Trump saying for them to torpedo the deal, and Mike says, "Oh yeah, of course we will." So I wanted. It's an interesting, because then you hear about people. Ted Cruz goes on Fox, and when they ask him about the bill, he says he didn't even read it. Doesn't matter. Didn't read it. Still bad. Still terrible. Still horrible. Will destroy the American children as we know it. But I didn't read it. But I'm against it. You hate to feel sorry for people, but I feel sorry for Senator Langford, the Republican, who was assisting in this bipartisan deal, and how his own party is grossly misunderstanding and misconstruing what they're trying to do here for the sake of this politics. Mitt Romney made it pretty much public that of his opinion of what he thinks of Donald Trump trying to torpedo this deal for the sake of politics, the sake of running for it, using this as a wedge issue to run on. House Republicans, who said this is going to be dead in the water as soon as it comes here, are screaming and demanding and pointing a finger and blaming the border on Biden and on his Homeland Security Director at the moment. They want to impeach Mayorkas over this. Blaming is fun. Yelling is fun. Actually doing the work they don't want to do. Actually fixing the problem they do not want to do. They want to give this as a campaign to run on for Donald Trump. So they're actively not going to do anything while blaming Biden for it. I want to explain how, in this political atmosphere of reindeer games, how completely disgusting this is. These House Republicans will bring on victims of crimes done by illegal immigrants for the shock value. People who are mourning loved ones. they will bring them up there so they can they can tell their story. And then if a Democrat tries to talk to them, then they are already still in mourning and is raw in their emotions, so they can be able to snap at them on camera, because that's what Republicans want. They want that emotion, right? It is interesting. I was dealing with some people on X, formerly Twitter, and how this fear mongering of some of the things I said, and then I got replies that were fear mongered. He says, "How would you feel if like some illegal immigrant was like in your neighborhood and he's like a criminal?" It says probably the same thing I would feel if a domestic homegrown American was in my neighborhood who was a criminal. What the fuck is that? It's just, you know what? And we put up a story of a horrible story of how a girl was killed by a illegal immigrant from school with a knife, right? And that's the scary part. And I says, okay, well, I see your knife killing of this illegal immigrant on this girl, and I raise you how many mass shootings in the past year done by homegrown American people? No, but we don't want to get involved in that. We don't get in the weeds about that. One of the things that bothers me the most about this whole issue is how they are actively snowing people in Texas. And when it came all to a head, well, this became such a dramatic issue for Abbott and his AG Kenny and all these other folk. How the other states are going to come and send their National Guard, and they're going to stand with Texas against the evil Fed and the Biden regime, and they're complicit with the cartels and this and other that and whatever and fuck yous and all that. This all stems at the Biden administration successfully went to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to tell Greg Abbott to remove razor wire from the river. Keep in mind that up to this point, every other measure that Texas and other border states have done, while in this conjunction with the Border Patrol, has been totally fine. It's been totally fine. Let's detain them. Yeah, let's rip away the children from the parents. It's great. Send them in different places. Hell, let's get Betsy DeVos and give her a little side gig. Allow her to just have those children that are removed from the adults, have them adopted away for a profit. Yay! Fucking human trafficking. That's wonderful. And all the other inhumanities that they do. Not counting like what they did to the migrant women, but if someone was charitable enough, Christian enough, to provide water for those who are crossing the desert, then they would be popping the water so that they couldn't have it. So thirsty people walking through a desert could continue to be thirsty at the risk of their own lives, because fuck them, they're illegal. They seem to say. But once we had the razor wire, which, for all the people who are like, Texas needs to defend itself at all costs, it kind of sounds familiar to like when Israel is defending itself by all costs by bombing like a refugee camp or a hospital, or recently going into a hospital dressed as women and as medical staff so they can kill people. Defense. So this measure with the reservoir that has actually had people caught in it and died because they were caught in it in the river and drowned, that's the bridge that becomes that teeny tiny bridge too far. So the Supreme Court agreed, and they said that they need to remove it. Well, Greg Abbott is not going to remove anything. This is to defend ourselves from Texas, or defend Texas from everybody else. So they will refuse. They refuse to do it, and then all these other, other states decide to send their National Guard. Okay. Fortunately, these other states don't really need a National Guard, so I guess they can stay there forever. And Texas took over a control point, Eagle Pass, and kicked out the feds. And is one of these incidents with the razor wire that really galled me, is that the story is, however it's true or not, this is the weird part. Okay, there is a mother and her children trying to cross the river. They caught in the razor wire. Here's the conflicting part of the story. Okay, conflicting point number one: the feds tried to save them, and the Texas Rangers, Texas Guard, whatever, denied them, and that woman, that mother, and her children died. Conflicting story to this number two is that the Texas Guard did block them, but they blocked them because, the mother, they're already dead. As I said, every other measure that has been done in this to attack migrants and illegal folk, to try to deter them away, we've been allowing to happen. As a government system, as previous administrations, from Biden to Trump to Obama, etc., etc., etc. But razor wire, which has confirmed killed people, that was the little walkway too far. I don't know if you call it a bridge, but it's a little walkway too far. Now, Greg Abbott said, if we started shooting people at the border, well, gosh darn it, then the Obama, no, not the Obama, the Biden administration, they would charge us with murder. Yeah, because that's murder. But they don't think that way. He said that as like a lament. Oh, if only they would not be so serious about it, then they would just let us just kill people at the border. So all this is going on. And social media, especially on X, is just ripe with all these stories of all this stand with Texas and people getting like proud, and they're getting their Civil War juices up, and they're having their circle jerk over it, and everyone's putting up their wonderful little images of like Confederate soldiers and people on horseback and people shooting guns, and what is the feds gonna do? It's Civil War, man. One point of order with that, fellas and ladies. Yeah, you have your guns? Yeah, it's great. It's great. The United States government has drones and has cruise missiles. You want to gather together in your little truck stops, to feeling all patriotic and so forth, and you're waiting for the feds to come with their massive shears to cut the razor wire, because that's, I guess, it's in your imagination. The government has satellites overhead. I mean, judging by the ratings of the viewership of the Persian Gulf War and the War on Terror, you've seen the footage of when cruise missiles comes down and hits a building. Or you see the satellite imagery of like when soldiers are on a road somewhere and all of a sudden so I don't know what you think would happen in that situation, but no, it would not end well. Not end well for anyone. But that's the thing. one of the worst things about this is that people are pushing in for a civil war. And the way, their methodology of doing it is through misinformation and disinformation. For the past few days on X, I've been seeing a lot of these videos of people put up these videos of a convoy, a hidden video between the trees. All of a sudden you see a convoy of tanks rolling by. Woo! You see another one video of the same situation of convoys of tanks and military equipment rolling by, and says, "Oh, they're all heading to Texas. It's the feds coming to Texas. They're coming." That video wasn't even in Texas. That video wasn't even in the United States. If you actually slow the video down and you're looking about, you see a few cars that has foreign license plates. I believe that was a video from Chile. There's another one that was being bountied back and forth. They're saying that farmers were gathering together in solidarity with Texas, and they lined up all their tractors and their cars and so forth on this hill, so it's stacked, by level. Saying that this is another video of these dedicated people standing with Texas. That video was from Germany. Had nothing to do with Texas. Had to do with the European issue concerning freezing out farmers. See, here's the thing. It's the thing that galls me, it pisses me off about people like this that are posting this stuff, this disinformation. You're trying to get people revved up. Incite them, as we know the terminology from January 6th. Incite these people to be ready to fight. But you're using bullshit. Videos from different countries of convoys, or of different time periods of a year or 2 years ago. You're using it as a contemporary video of what's happening now in a place that it's not happening. And you keep revving up this myth of an open border, that Biden is intentionally keeping the border open, when no, the stats are showing that he has had more people arrested in his time in office than Trump has. He released less people into the country than Trump had. And it is also bullshit, especially for politicians who are revving these people up with their rhetoric, going on Fox News or AN or Christian Mingle or Newsmax, and they're talking about how the Biden administration is working with the cartels or in complicit with all this shit. When they are told by their dear leader not to do a thing about the border. You think the border situation is terrible. It is. Maybe not as bad as advertised, but still it is a broken system on many levels. Border security is broken. Our legal system to set up legal immigration is broken. How we handle and restaff and resupply our border patrol, our border security is broken. But they do not want it fixed. At least not by this administration. They don't want to have Biden to have a win. Before this bipartisan deal that is being bandied about and being told by Mike Johnson that it's dead on arrival as soon as it gets to the House, Biden proposed and pushed for emergency funding for the border at the tune of $14 billion. Some of that money was going to go for border technology, security, hiring more Border Patrol agents, hiring asylum judges to facilitate the actual asylum and or immigration process that is backlogged. They denied it outright. They didn't want anything to do with it. So while you are massing your people in Texas, blaming the Biden administration, do you not also notice that your Republicans that are cheering you on are not doing a goddamn thing? All because of politics. If the border was that important, something would be done. Anything would be done. Could the Biden $14 billion emergency funding, was that going to fix everything? No, of course not. But it would have helped. Will this Senate bipartisan deal from Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, will that fix everything? No, it won't. But it would help. See, even from a layman, someone who's an average guy, I can see that the problems with the border is not just one solution. And one of the problems that we had with Trump is that his solution was a wall. Just a wall. I don't need anything else, just a wall. I'm hiding behind my wall. No. He needs more than a wall. You need border security, which could be barriers, which could be a wall. You need technology, and not the imaginary technology that Trump was doing, where he's talking about making the wall translucent or transparent so you could see people on the other side, or making it solar powered or whatever. Because I think he just, anytime he spoke, he just heard words that day and he decided to throw it out there. Made them out of aluminum siding, whatever. It's funny that, like, when he finally did make some form of wall, like out of 4 years, he was able to establish 4 miles worth of wall. Part of that wall fell over through a Santa Ana wind. Only the best material. Yeah. If you're serious about the border, you need to not be worrying about, just hating on illegals. Or hating on the other, and you call that being a border patriot. You have to want your barriers, want your walls, because that's your visual placebo, yay. But you would also want to make sure that there are asylum judges, immigration lawyers. You want to make sure that you can fast track, or at least make the horrible backlog smaller and smaller to facilitate this. You should be freaking humane about it. Have a humanity towards these people. There could be various options that we could do, but you have to have the will to do it. And there's the problem, is that outside the lip service, no one wants to do shit. And this is part of the political apathy I talked about in the video or 2 videos ago, where we can talk a big game, but we don't really want to solve a problem. I made examples of that with, like, the transgender issue with the bathrooms, because I came up with a solution of, like, just having, instead of communal bathrooms, just have a bank of single stalls that has a toilet and a sink, each one. There isn't a communal thing. You can just have them right there in any public place. But you have to have the will to do it. But people do not have the will to do it, because people would rather complain, because problems equals to money that can be donated to them for the campaigns. And the border is just another one that they're running on. Not just Trump, but the whole Republican apparatus is running on the border. So much so that they do not want to fix the border. They don't want to give Biden a win. If you cared for this goddamn country, it shouldn't matter who's president. I tell you this as a Trump critic, that if Trump spent more time thinking about more things other than a wall that Mexico wasn't going to pay for, but came out with a serious idea, a platform, a bill, something that had the comprehensive things that we need, the various issues that we have when it comes to the border that just is not just a wall, then he would probably get more support for it. But he didn't. He just wanted to build a wall, and he wanted to dust off Obama's cages. He wanted to be horrible and inhumane. His Republican buddies who went down, who just says, is like Lindsey Graham, who, when asked, about how long these people should be detained, and he used to say, 400 days, I don't care, because Mr. High and Mighty, Mr. G there, yeah, so none of that. Again, but anything would be a start, and anything would be helpful. If you were serious about the border, you would want something to be done. Now they're claiming that, Biden could just do it like that. Like that. He doesn't need to go through bills. He doesn't need $14 billion. None of that stuff. The stuff that Mike Johnson on TV would laugh off of, even though, like, Jake Tapper or whoever is, like, telling him, well, this money could have gone to, like, more border agents. This money could have gone to this, gone to that. And he's just deer in the headlights because Daddy Trump told him not to do it, and that's as far as it goes. Here's one more little piece of how this is so stupid and silly of this. One of the excuses of them not wanting to do the bipartisan deal is that it also included money for Ukraine. Okay. I will submit this to you. If the Democrats pulled the Ukraine money out and left it a pure bill for the border, the Republicans would still vote against it. Because that is an excuse. If you were so desperate for the border to be secure at all cost, and the exchange in that politics is money for Ukraine, you would go for it. If you were that desperate for something to be done at the border. But you're not. You're not that desperate, are you? You're not that desperate enough. You will leave the border situation hanging for months, from January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. And even if your guy wins, and then another December or another January, because Biden would still be in office. Pretty much a year. A year of leaving the border hanging, which you've been doing for 30 years, so why not one more, right? So, when you're crying your tears of blood, and you bring up these unfortunate people who have died because of illegal immigrant chaos, and you bring them out there, your victims, that you use to get that emotional thing. You use to try to shame on Democrats while you do nothing. Pointing your finger at people isn't doing anything. This is no different than Obama comes out for the American Jobs Bill and you all refuse it. Either whole or piece by piece you deny it with your majorities. Then you ask Obama, where's the jobs? You say Biden is blowing up the border and he's not doing anything and he's complicit, and yet when he does things to try to help tries to push for something that's trying to help, that the Democrats are trying to push to try to help, you say no. Because you want this to be as terrible as possible. Just like Trump wanted the economy to tank and begged for it to tank and hoped and prayed for it to tank. The publicly said he wanted it to tank. And then when it's not tanking, then when the economy is getting better and better and better and the stock market is so fucking high, all of a sudden he comes out, oh, that was because of me. Fuck you. Because of me. What, for 3.5 years ago? Somehow your previous administration's influence is 3 years and 3.5 years later? Go to bed and wake up again, because that is nonsense. But then again, that's him in a nutshell, right? He opens his mouth, and a $5 million judgment on defamation, on sexual assault, just turns into $83.3 million. Because he just he doesn't know when to shut up, he doesn't know how to shut up. And he's going to continue. We might see another one of those. Be that as it may, that is their saintly, vaunted messiah of a nominee that they want over Nikki Haley. Good Christian people. Oh yeah, good Christian people. Good Christian people, because there was another thing I saw on X. I was about the good Christian values of like defending the border or defending this whole razor wire thing. Yeah, it's a good Christian value to want to have a deterrence on there that kills people. So you're pro-life when the baby's in a womb inside an American womb. But if a pregnant woman is drowning because she's caught in razor wire and has a miscarriage, oh, well, fuck her, right? Because she's illegal. And illegal people don't count in your Christian heart, do they? Because that's the rise of the hypocrisy upon this. And it reminds me, it echoes, it harkens back into the days of Jim Crow, where people will go to a school, get themselves hands full of rocks, so they can throw at a little black girl integrating into a school. Then they go home, and then they say grace, because they're such good Christians. Fuck all of you. Yeah, I'm a little salty tonight, because this whole issue just hits me so many different ways. For those who've seen my videos long enough know that I'm very particular when it comes to the border. I scalded mercilessly Trump over his actions, his Department of Homeland Security's actions, what they did to the people, and I am no different on Biden. I'm going to acknowledge when Biden is trying to help, but in that helping, the Republicans refuse that help, refuses to get along with it because they don't want him to have a win. I'm a broken record, but so are they. And if you're going to be manning up for a civil war, you're going to listen to your Hannitys, or you're going to listen to your Tuckers, or you're going to listen to your Ben Shapiros, you're going to listen to Ingram, or you're going to listen to whoever the fuck else that's going to rev you up like that people were revved up on January 6th, and you're going to go wandering off into Texas, waiting for the blue coats of the feds to arrive like it is 1861 again. Try to think of doing it for the right reason. An honest reason. A fact-based reason. Because, as I said with the Supreme Court, out of all the things that people have been doing to combat illegals from crossing over the border, the one deterrence that the government and the courts said it goes a bridge too far was a razor wire. Now, I pose this question that no one seemed to answer. If razor wire was so good, why hadn't any governor before Greg Abbott used it? Could it be that even governors like, say, George W. Bush, and Rick Perry, had some little bit of monicum of morality? That as much as they didn't want people, crossing over the border, and for whatever in whatever imagined horror that would cause from that, they didn't want to see people dead dangling off of razor wire in a river. People are getting so revved up on this is that I don't think I'm far-fetched in my imagination that we're going to see on X, the more that we get more of this citizen pro-Texas, pro go out there with your gun and bullshit. We're going to see pictures on X. Short period, because even X will probably try to take them down as soon as they come up, but there'll probably be a lot of them. You're probably going to see some people who are so revved up in the rhetoric against anti-immigrants, anti-immigration, and anyone that crosses the border, man, woman, and child, that you will see these people posing with their guns, posing over a body, 2 bodies, 3 bodies of dead migrants, as if they were doing it because they're douchebag hunters and that's like their prey. Like an animal off of like an animal reserve. Oh, I bagged a lion. I'm not supposed to, but here I am. And I wonder, at that point, there is going to be even a consideration if these bodies are the bodies of adult men or adult women or children. Because the mindset's already there. They're illegal. They're already illegal. They already broke the law. So whatever happens to them doesn't matter. So they can live out their vicarious fantasies of doing the dark side because these people are invalid. This is what pisses me off. Especially when it's these pro-life folk. They'll protect the baby in the womb till birth, and then of course they don't give a shit after the birth, but protect the life, sacred life, the womb, let her come out. But if that baby is being held by a mother, trying to desperately cross a river, and gets caught in razor wire, life is only sacred when it's legal. The ranter rants because you fuckers always give me a reason to rant, now do you? Not all of you. Some of you are good. But these people out there that are revving people up for a civil war, that are revving people up to see the worst in anyone who happens to not be white or not, at least not American. Because Lord knows, an illegal immigrant does not glow in the dark. So, when people are going to be asking for people's papers, like they tried to do in Arizona, and they think they got themselves in illegal cornered, and it turns out to be some kid who's a third generation American from El Paso, you think that's going to matter? See, that's why. That's why this rant. And it's always rising, and we're always going to go back to this. We're going to be watching this fucking clown and pony show for the next year, even through the election and after the election. If people started being adults, actually gave a shit about this country, that to put the politics aside, think that they can win against Biden in some other way, but at least let's try to do something at the border. I would be amazed if people grew up. But they're not. They're living vicariously through their 75-year-old man-child. when they talk about Biden's decline, holy shit, look at Trump's decline. I said that Ranter Matt. I already said that. I'll be back probably next week. I think I'm actually doing a good job doing this, 1 week at a time. One last thing, and I will promise I will hit the button and this will stop. For those people who are pushing misinformation, disinformation just to trigger a civil war, to trigger people to be so paranoid of their government that they're ready to take up arms against it, that are using fake bullshit videos, not even from this country, just to piss people off and to get them ready for the Armageddon to come. I want you to think, who's behind that? Who is so eager to push out bullshit just to get you ready to pull a trigger? Because it might be Trump, might be the House Republicans. They certainly, Lord knows, they are doing their part in this chaos. But who else? Who else would be so eager for the United States to tear itself apart? Over razor wire? And over screaming at a president to do something when they don't want him to do anything at all, for the sake of politics. Think about that.